if I told you the reason you're not rich has nothing to do with your daily Starbucks run? In fact, obsessing over that coffee is exactly what's keeping you broke. I know that sounds completely backwards, but stick with me, because what I'm about to show you will flip everything you thought you knew about building wealth completely upside down. Most people are working incredibly hard at being poor. They're tracking every dollar, cutting every corner, and still watching their bank account barely move. Meanwhile, there's a small group of people who seem almost careless with money, yet they're building serious wealth. The difference isn't luck or inheritance or some secret investment strategy. It's understanding one simple mathematical principle that changes everything. There's a rule that explains why 20% of your effort produces 80% of your results. And when you apply this to money, it reveals something shocking. You're probably wasting your time on financial decisions that literally don't matter, while ignoring the few choices that will determine whether you retire rich or broke. If you're tired of working hard with money and getting nowhere, make sure you subscribe, because I'm going to show you exactly which financial decisions actually matter and which ones are just keeping you busy.
Let me tell you about two people who completely changed how I think about this. Meet Rachel and Tom. Both make $65,000 a year. Both want to build wealth, but their approaches couldn't be more different. Rachel is what most financial experts would call disciplined. She wakes up every morning and makes coffee at home, saving $5 a day. She packs her lunch religiously, tracks every single expense in a budgeting app, uses cashback credit cards for everything, and spends her Sunday afternoons clipping digital coupons. She's proud of herself. She's saved about $250 a month through all these small optimizations. That's $3,000 a year. Not bad, right? Tom, on the other hand, looks financially reckless. He grabs coffee at the shop every morning, eats out for lunch most days, doesn't track his daily spending at all. But here's what Tom did differently. He made 3 decisions, just 3. First, when his lease was up, instead of upgrading to a nicer apartment like his friends, he moved to a smaller place in a less trendy neighborhood. His rent dropped by $500 a month. Second, when his car lease ended, he didn't get another one. He bought a 7-year-old Toyota with cash for $12,000, no more $450 monthly payment. Third, he spent 3 months learning a new skill that was in high demand at work, then used that to negotiate an $8,000 raise. Do the math with me. Tom is now saving $500 on rent and $450 on his car payment. That's $950 a month, or $11,400 a year, plus his $8,000 raise. That's nearly $20,000 in annual improvement from 3 decisions he made once and never had to think about again. Rachel is saving $3,000 annually through constant daily effort. Tom improved his situation by $20,000 through 3 one-time decisions and now spends 0 mental energy on small purchases. Who's winning? And more importantly, who's actually living a less stressful life?
This is the 80-20 rule in action. It comes from an Italian economist named Wilfredo Pareto, who discovered in the 1890s that 80% of Italy's land was owned by 20% of the people. He then noticed this pattern everywhere. In his garden, 20% of the plants produced 80% of the fruit. In business, 20% of customers generate 80% of revenue. And in your finances, 20% of your decisions determine 80% of your wealth. The problem is nobody teaches you which 20% actually matters. So you end up like Rachel, working incredibly hard on the 80% of decisions that barely move the needle, while the real opportunities slip by completely unnoticed. Let me break down the only 3 financial categories that actually determine your future. Everything else is basically noise. The first is housing. For most people, this is their biggest monthly expense, which means it's also their biggest opportunity. The difference between spending 30% of your income on rent versus 45% isn't just about having extra money today. It's about whether you'll be a millionaire or not. Let me show you the math that landlords and real estate agents definitely don't want you to see. If you make $60,000 a year and you spend 45% on housing, that's $27,000 annually. If you get that down to 30%, you're spending $18,000. That $9,000 difference every single year, invested at a modest 8% return, becomes $1.4 million over 35 years. One housing decision, made once, $1 million difference. But here's what people actually do. They'll tour apartments and fall in love with the one that has the rooftop terrace and the fancy gym and the package concierge. They'll justify the extra $400 a month by telling themselves they deserve it. Meanwhile, they're literally giving away their chance at becoming a millionaire for amenities they'll barely use. Then these same people will go home and spend 45 minutes researching which streaming service to cancel to save $12 a month. They'll stress about their electricity bill. They'll keep the thermostat at an uncomfortable temperature to save $30, all while hemorrhaging $400 monthly on an apartment upgrade that seemed worth it in the moment, but is actually costing them their financial future. The second category is transportation. And oh boy, is this where people absolutely lose their minds. The average car payment in America right now is over $700 a month. Some people are paying $900 or even $1,000, and they're financing these vehicles for 7 or 8 years. Think about that insanity for a second. You're making payments on something that loses value every single month for almost a decade. It's like paying rent on ice cream as it melts. Here's the reality that car salespeople are trained to hide from you. That $700 monthly payment over 7 years is $58,800 in total payments. At the end, your car might be worth $15,000 if you're lucky. But if you had invested that $700 monthly payment instead at 8% annual returns, you'd have over $90,000 after 7 years. Keep doing it for 20 years, and you'd have nearly $500,000. A car payment isn't a $700 monthly expense. It's a $500,000 decision disguised as a $700 monthly expense. But people don't see it this way because car companies are brilliant at making you focus on the wrong number. They don't want you thinking about the total cost or the opportunity cost. They want you focused on the monthly payment. Can you afford $700 a month? Well, technically yes, so you convince yourself it's fine. Meanwhile, you could buy a reliable used car for $15,000 cash, drive it for 10 years, and invest the difference. That's the choice wealthy people make, not because they can't afford the new car, but because they understand which decisions actually matter. And if this is starting to change how you see your own finances, hit that subscribe button right now, because we're about to get to the most important category of all.
The third category is income, and this is where the 80-20 rule becomes almost offensive in how obvious it is once you see it. Most people spend 0 hours per week actively trying to increase their income and several hours per week trying to reduce their expenses. They'll spend an entire evening comparing prices on toilet paper to save $3, but they won't spend an evening updating their resume or learning a valuable skill that could lead to a $10,000 raise. Let's do the math on this. If you make $50,000 a year and you're really dedicated to expense cutting, you might save $3,000 annually through extreme frugality. That's 6% of your income. Congratulations, you're eating generic cereal and never going out with friends. Or you could spend that same time and energy working on a 20% income increase. That's $10,000 extra per year. Which path sounds more enjoyable? Which path has unlimited upside? Your expenses have a floor. You can only cut so much before you're living in your car eating ramen. But your income has no ceiling. You could double it, triple it, 10x it. There's no limit. So why do people focus on the thing with limited potential instead of the thing with unlimited potential? Because cutting expenses feels like control. It provides immediate feedback. You buy the cheaper brand and you see the savings right there on your receipt. It feels good. It feels productive. Increasing your income feels uncertain. It requires you to ask for a raise and potentially hear no. It means developing new skills without knowing if they'll pay off. It means possibly looking for a new job and facing rejection. It's uncomfortable. But here's what you need to understand.
Comfortable actions produce comfortable results. Wealthy people got wealthy by being uncomfortable. They had difficult conversations about salary. They invested time and skills that seemed risky. They made career moves that felt scary. You cannot expense cut your way to wealth. You can only income increase your way there. The math just doesn't work any other way.
Now here's where this gets really interesting. When you combine all three categories, housing, transportation, and income, you're looking at roughly 80% of your financial outcome. Everything else, all those small daily purchases that financial gurus tell you to track, that's the other 20% of impact. So conventional financial advice has you spending 100% of your energy on 20% of results, while ignoring the 80% that actually determines your future. It's completely backwards. This explains why you can follow all the traditional advice, track every expense, use coupons, make coffee at home, bring lunch to work, and still feel like you're getting nowhere financially. You're being disciplined about things that don't matter while being careless about things that do. Let me give you the uncomfortable truth that the personal finance industry doesn't want you to know. Most financial advice is designed to keep you busy, not to make you wealthy. Because if you actually understood that wealth comes from three simple decisions, housing, transportation, and income, you wouldn't need to buy budgeting apps, attend financial seminars, or read endless articles about saving money on groceries. The industry needs you to believe that wealth building is complicated and requires constant attention to minor details, because that's what keeps you engaged with their products. But the actual path to wealth is almost annoyingly simple. Spend less on housing than you can afford, avoid car payments, increase your income aggressively, invest the difference consistently. That's it. 4 things. Those 4 things represent maybe 20% of possible financial decisions, but determine 100% of your wealth-building success.
Here's what applying the 80-20 rule to your money actually looks like in practice. You make the 3 big decisions right: affordable housing, no car payment, and you work on increasing your income. Then you stop obsessing over money and actually live your life. You buy the coffee, you go out to eat, you take the vacation. You don't track every purchase or feel guilty about small splurges, because you've optimized the 20% that matters. The other 80% takes care of itself. You have plenty of money because you're not throwing it away on the big 3 mistakes. This is why wealthy people often seem so relaxed about small purchases. They'll tip generously, buy expensive wine, upgrade to business class. But ask them about their first apartment and they'll tell you about the tiny place they lived in to keep costs down. Ask about their car and they'll talk about driving a used Honda for 10 years. They're loose with money on things that don't impact wealth and ruthless about things that do. They've identified the vital few decisions that matter, and they optimize those while ignoring everything else. Most people do the exact opposite. They stress about spending $15 on lunch while ignoring that they're overpaying for rent by $300 a month. They research the best grocery loyalty program while making zero effort to negotiate their salary. They're worried about the mosquito bite while bleeding from a major wound. If you're realizing you've been focused on the wrong things, subscribe to this channel because I break down exactly how to optimize each of these major financial decisions.
Let me show you what happens when someone actually implements this. I know someone, let's call her Maya, who made $55,000 at her job. She was doing all the traditional financial responsibility things, tracking expenses, using coupons, feeling guilty about every purchase. Then she learned about the 80-20 rule and everything changed. She looked at her 3 big categories. Her rent was $1,400 for a 1-bedroom in a trendy neighborhood. She found a studio in a less popular area for $950. That freed up $450 monthly. She was making payments on a car worth $28,000. She sold it, bought a $10,000 used car with cash, and eliminated her $380 payment. Then she spent 6 months learning data analysis skills at night and used those skills to negotiate into a new role that paid $68,000. Let's add it up. She's saving $450 on rent and $380 on her car payment. That's $830 a month, or nearly $10,000 annually, plus her $13,000 raise. Her financial situation improved by $23,000 per year through 3 decisions. And here's the kicker. She now spends less time thinking about money than she did before. She doesn't track expenses, she doesn't clip coupons, she doesn't stress about buying coffee or going out with friends, because she optimized the things that matter. Everything else just works. Within 5 years of making those 3 decisions, she had invested enough to have over $100,000 in her investment accounts, all while living a less stressful, more enjoyable life than when she was obsessing over every small purchase. That's the power of focusing on the right 20%. 3 decisions, made once, changed everything. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, but what if I can't move to a cheaper place? What if I need my car? What if my company won't give me a raise? And that's fair. Not everyone can optimize all 3 categories immediately. But here's the thing. You don't need to optimize all 3 at once. Even optimizing one of these categories will have more impact than a year's worth of coupon clipping and expense tracking. Start with whichever one is most accessible to you right now. Can you move when your lease is up? Can you sell your car and buy something cheaper? Can you develop a valuable skill? Can you start looking for better opportunities? Pick one. Focus your energy there. That's still applying the 80-20 rule. The point isn't perfection. The point is directing your financial energy toward activities that actually build wealth instead of activities that just make you feel busy and productive. Here's the really beautiful part about this approach. Once you make these big decisions correctly, you can actually relax about money for the first time in your life. You don't have to track every expense or feel guilty about small purchases because you've already won the game that matters. You're living below your means on the big stuff, which means you have plenty for the small stuff. You're increasing your income, which means your financial situation keeps improving without requiring constant attention to minor details. You're investing the difference, which means time and compound interest are working in your favor. This is what I call the lazy millionaire strategy. You work hard on the 3 decisions that matter, then you get to be lazy about everything else because you've already set yourself up for success. Compare that to the traditional approach, where you work hard on hundreds of small decisions every single day, track every purchase, stress about every expense, and still struggle to get ahead because you're working hard on things that don't actually impact your wealth. One approach has you working smart once, the other has you working hard forever. Which sounds better? The financial freedom everyone's chasing isn't about having so much money you never think about it. It's about making the right big decisions so you don't have to obsess over the small ones. It's about focusing your energy where it actually matters so you can stop sweating the stuff that doesn't. That's the 80-20 rule of money. 20% of your financial decisions determine 80% of your wealth. Stop majoring in the minors. Stop optimizing your grocery bill while ignoring your rent payment. Stop researching gas rewards programs while avoiding salary negotiations. Identify your big 3: housing, transportation, income. Optimize those ruthlessly. Then give yourself permission to stop obsessing over everything else. That's how you build wealth without losing your mind or your life in the process. The wealthy aren't smarter than you. They don't have better discipline than you. They don't track expenses more carefully than you. They just focus their energy on the decisions that actually matter, while everyone else is busy being busy with financial theater. So here's my challenge to you. Look at your 3 big categories right now. Not tomorrow, not next week, right now. What percentage of your income goes to housing? What are you paying monthly for transportation? When's the last time you actively worked on increasing your income? If those numbers don't look good, you've just identified exactly where to focus your energy. Not on coffee, not on Netflix subscriptions, not on whether to buy organic bananas, on the big 3 decisions that will actually determine whether you build wealth or stay broke. Stop working hard at being poor. Start working smart at being rich. Now I want to hear from you. Which of the big 3, housing, transportation, or income, is your biggest opportunity right now? And where are you watching this from? Drop your answer in the comments below. I read every single one, and I'd love to know where you're starting your wealth-building journey.